Welcome everybody to Smart Water Wednesdays. Appreciate you making time for us this week. I have with me my friend Andrew Chase with Monarch Environmental, and we are going to talk about, this is where I transition to the title slide that I made all up with your face on it, Andrew. We are going to talk about tips and tricks to maximize your water savings. Welcome, Andrew. Thanks for joining me.
All right. Hey, Ben, it's great to be on. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks for all of the work that you did in preparation for this meeting. I know I've had you running around for the last couple hours working for me, so I appreciate all of your contribution. I want to start off by saying welcome to Smart Water Wednesdays for Smart Irrigation Month. This is our last iteration of Smart Irrigation Month episodes. And my kind of plan for Smart Irrigation Month was to start in the shallow end and go toward the deep end. And so, Tony Monzone just logged in. So we started off with what is an ET controller, or what is smart controllers? And then we went to, if I was just starting out, what do I wish I had known when I was just starting out? An expert user, but in that kind of basic mode, in that early stages, what do I need to adjust? What do I need to keep an eye on? Today's episode is really going to focus on my water nerds. And apologize if that offends you, Andrew Chase, but you are officially a water nerd in my book. And I've brought on one of the best water nerds that I know to go through some really advanced level sort of water management stuff, some concepts and some testing principles that I think the best water managers are doing that provide amazing insight into how that water is being applied to your site, what we can learn from that, and how to manage the WeatherTrack based on what we see. So it should be a great half hour. We've got a ton to talk about. So Andrew, let's start. I got to share my screen again. I want to tell you that are you there? Yep. Oh, I have my smart irrigation slide. I meant to show that. Again, you are all over my social media feed. I saw this article from the Pollen Press touting the mad skills of my buddy Andrew Chase, talking about something that I think is worth noting, right? With Monarch isn't a traditional landscape and irrigation company. Can you tell us a little bit about Monarch and what they do?
So Monarch Environmental, we're primarily a landscape consulting company. We manage the landscape contracts for large homeowner associations. We work with commercial site vendors. We're working with a lot of different people in the industry where everybody has an idea of where they should be, and basically we provide that oversight to ensure that they are working at the level of either contract oversight for landscape contracts. My side of the world is water management. So if an association has made the investment in smart controller technology, what we do is we provide those expert eyes to ensure that the controllers are operating where they're supposed to be. We're creating water budgets. We're making weekly checkups. We're putting eyes on the project on a weekly basis on a water management side to ensure that we're watering to the landscape, the most optimal level for the landscape, no more, no less. We do, so if it's really hot, we're going to water more. If it's really, really cool and wet, then we're going to water less. But we also have our consultants out in the field that are our second set or third set of eyes to help us. And we really work as a team to ensure that the landscape is at the best it can be. And we work.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to point out, is that you guys really partner with your customers and their landscapers, right? So you're not in that traditional role of you are the landscaper, but you're there to help implement a strategic water management plan or an environmental sustainability plan, and work hand in hand as kind of the go-between to take
Right.
the goals of
Yeah.
the customer and put it in the hands of the contractor.
It truly is a collaboration. And when I talk about it with our account managers and the companies we work with on site, I talk about having a win-win-win. Our goal is to create at least my goal, I know this is our goal as a company, we're rooted in relationships. We have these core values, but it's all done in collaboration. And I want our landscape contractor to have a portfolio piece. I want something that they're proud of, that they're going to put in their print ads and their social media. And, in helping our contractors do that, account managers are spread thin. We're there to be that second set of eyes to help, they're whether they're on rotation for landscape, or I could come in and say, look, our coverage is a little off. We're gonna, let's put in some high efficiency heads to help improve the coverage in these turf areas or in these shrub areas. And they put out the proposals and they earn that work and they perform that work, and we make sure it's done. And then the community wins because they have a place that they're proud to live in.
Yeah.
And so in the end, we all look good one way or another, and that's the ultimate goal.
There you go. So one thing I wanted to highlight in this social media feed, this is what sparked the idea for the whole episode. This picture of you with this mountain of a book and this handy little tool. Can you tell me what the mountain of a book that you're holding is?
Oh, that's irrigation. The irrigation book, volume 6. That's actually a signed copy by one of the authors of that book. And awesome. That's one of our irrigation Bibles, and the Irrigation Bible of Irrigation Bibles from the Irrigation Association. But that's actually a signed copy of that book that Matt Davenport had signed, and so it's a little treasured item in the office that we all kind of joke about. But at the same time, it's pretty valuable with all of its calculations and formulas and research that's gone
absolutely
into it.
So tell me what our
trusty soil probe.
There you go. Talk to me about the soil probe.
Oh, that soil probe is about due to be retired.
It's not as shiny as the one in the pictures for sure.
Yeah, no, that one got cleaned up for the picture a little bit. Mine is bent, because you're trying to push it into the hard clay soils around here sometimes. And when you have a customer say, or a contractor say, hey, it's dry over here, like, can you add more water? Well, let's investigate that first. I probably put a probe in the ground 7 to 10 times a week. And half that time is when they say, oh, it's dry. And 9 times out of 10, you come through that first half inch. That's where it's dried out from the infrequent watering cycle. And then it's way past down there. Look at you even put a picture of Luna. We have 2 Lunas in our office. We have my Luna, who's our Era pup, and then our tree consultant has a Luna, and she's the Arbor pup.
So I just have to tell you, this is the cutest dog I've seen all day. And what prompted this episode, what prompted my interest in this topic, it came together. I saw that article shortly after we did our tribute to Tom Ash, and talking to Danny Smith about how he learned about the soil probe from Tom Ash, and Tom Ash, that's where I learned about it. And so I think that this is something that great water managers need to understand and hopefully can adopt into their process. So what I tried to do here was step you into the process. Can you walk me through how you use this tool very quickly?
Pretty quickly. When I see an area that looks good, but maybe we want to verify that it's make sure that it's not being over irrigated, we'll go in and take a couple of random core samples and make sure that we're watering just to or just beyond the root zone. If there's an area that's dry, we want to verify that it's actually dry. So sometimes we hit a spot, and I put all my might into it, and I bend my soil probe. But go in there and take a look and make sure that we're watering down. So whether it's turf, turf grass is obviously the obvious first one that everybody goes to. But our shrub areas, we want to see a 12-inch, if a 12-inch root depth, we want to see water down to that 12 inches. And sometimes you're going to get dust that first 3 or 4. But if I'm using my my managed allowable depletion, and I'm down to I find that my root zone's 12, 14 inches, and I have moisture. I might not have it the first 2 or 3, but I've got moisture down beyond that, past that 12-inch mark. Then I'm going to say it's we're good to go, especially in our drought tolerant environments that we're planting around here in Southern California today. So that's where it comes into play. A lot of people question how much water is actually going down. It's like, no, the controllers know. The controllers know that we don't need water today. We can go 7 to 10 days without watering with some of this plant material, even in the summertime. We got really good root zone depth, and we got really good watering depth, and we're good to go. And sometimes, we do have to add some water. It's all location specific, zone specific. It depends on the coverage. Plants blocking heads, we got to turn it up and get the maintenance guys out here.
So tell me, how do you read these core samples? So you put your mite into it, you get all the way down to where you want to test, just below your desired root depth, right? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
That's the ultimate goal, is to get just below that desired root depth. So in the shrub areas, I'm not going to look for the fibrous hairs that we do in the turf areas. I'm going to say, okay, we're next to some trees and some pretty established plant material, so I'm going to give an estimated root depth.
So you're not looking for the roots in the sample on those kinds of things, like you are on the turf.
Yeah, I don't want to pull out a 1-inch core of root mass in there. But, at the same time, so I'm going to go near the plant. I'm going to go maybe in a tree around the canopy area and say, okay, this is where my beneficial watering is. This is where I'm going to make sure that I do have the amount of water in the soil that I want. So that would be like your first slide. That's on a slope, whereas the rest of them, these are all different turf areas, and you can see there's actually different soil types and where we would classify our clays and our loams. So not only are we looking at the root, the hairs of the, seeing how long the hairs of the what I call the hairs, the roots are of the turf grass, but we're identifying the class of soil and making sure that we have some areas where they use clean fill, and it's a different soil type than across the street on the same controller. So really identifying what's there. Maybe there's a sandy soil across the street, and that's why we're having an issue with it staying green. And so we do have to adjust our settings accordingly, because we're getting just that water pouring right through the soil, and then across the street they left at the base clay. And so there, we don't need to water it nearly as much. And so it's really important to identify that and observe and keep an eye on it year round.
So when we boil it down and you pull this core sample, just in that explanation, right, you have talked about the WeatherTrack settings that involve soil type, that involve root depth, what else do you see in these core samples that you then manage?
Outside of the moisture levels of those core samples, and the moisture levels, and then we're also if we're looking at our settings, and we're saying, look, we have the soil down right, we have the root depth, we're right on that. We're going to look at our precip rates, and we're going to say, okay, let's take a look and see how much water we're really applying. I did it recently. I did a site where identical size, 2 zones side by side, 2 different controllers, so we could actually run them side by side on 2 different meters, and they had an additional 6 sprinkler heads in there, and it was the application rate was 40% higher, and so so we had one area where there's runoff coming down off the sidewalk into the street, and the other side was looking good. We couldn't, it was like one of those, we were newer to the site. So we broke out the sprinkler nerd, the water nerd in me right there on my computer. We went on Google Earth and we mapped it out, and it was like an 80 square foot difference on these 2 areas. There was about 4,000 square feet total. And then we ran, we did a learn flow on the site, and we learned flow, and one site was running at 39 gallons a minute, and one site was running at 54 gallons a minute for the same square footage. So right there, I could say, okay. And so we did the base calculations. We did the 96.3 times GPM over square footage, and we calculated out a gross precip rate, and we plotted it all out into the computer, and off we went.
Off you went.
There you go. There's some water nerd stuff.
There was water nerd. There was math. So far down the water nerd hole that we just talked about math of water nerdism. That's awesome.
And that all comes from sticking a probe into the ground and seeing how many, and then unfortunately that site, it was like, okay, we have runoff. Well, we shouldn't have runoff. Why do we? And it's just making that simple thing. And for us, it's simple. We spent 20 minutes there looking at it, and that was the rabbit hole that we went down after 20 minutes. And we were on our way. But that's the continuous evolution of these items.
So the one thing I wanted to highlight on the core sample was in this last picture, right? That you can actually see the moisture level more prominent in this last picture. You can see that we're watering turf grass, and proper irrigation wants to exaggerate the root zone, right? Just be just below your root. And you can see that that's what's happening here, right? You can see that if we have a 4-inch root depth, water at the 5th inch is good. Water at the 6th inch is wasted, right? And so one of the key things you're looking for is, am I watering too deep? Am I over applying that water?
Right. And we find that obviously you can see from the second picture, where we have the heavy clay soil and it's just saturated, and that open area in that soil probe is 12 inches. So, we have water way deep down, and it's like, okay, why are we watering so heavy in this area? You open it up and 5 feet away, it's a big dry spot. And then you find out that your heads are stretched. And that's when we come to our contractor and say, hey, let's do a proposal to help this coverage issue. And, so, that comes all back to taking these soil samples, and these core samples help. I mean, they are literally the lifeblood of our landscape, and they help us in so many ways. And like I said, there's areas that I'll hit twice a month just because they're so dynamic in their shade or wind. The winds come up and help dry out the areas, and we're just making sure that we're staying on top of it.
All right, so that is our transition. That is where we want to go into talking about the WeatherTrack stuff. So once you have this awesome information, and you want to go in and really define this better with your WeatherTrack settings, one of the things that we talked about, hey, I'm in the wrong account. Sorry. You don't need my 3000 controller account, do you?
No.
Nah, let's use the demo account just for giggles. Sorry. What we're going to do today is going to be fun for the water nerds, because we are actually going to get into the upcoming release of WeatherTrack Mobile 3.5 due out, I believe, next week. So mine is still the beta version, but some of the awesome things that Andrew uses to adjust his schedules will now live on the app. It's something that we're continuously looking at, those advanced settings, the deep, dark parts of the app that didn't used to be exposed, that you could only find on weathertrack.net or on the controller itself, now will appear in the app for you and give you the ability to manage. So we're going to start out on the sites page. We're going to go over here to my Meadowview HOA site. Oh, no, we're not, because that's a master valve override. We're going to use the Mountain Peak HOA site, and we're going to go into the station for this site. So this is where you could see normal manual irrigation. This is how you use WeatherTrack Mobile as a remote control and turn stuff on and off. And then underneath each one of these stations is a settings page. So if I click on the station name, it brings up the settings page. This looks almost like it did back in the day. But some of the things that Andrew wanted to talk about, some of the things that he uses to manage how that controller irrigates, to save more water, live in here now. And I wanted to show that off a little bit. So one of the cool things Andrew and I talked about was root depth. Can you talk to me about how you use the root depth in your adjustments?
So a lot of in a lot of our area in this market with root depth, we have overseeding of turf grass, especially for the fall. And for, you know, we'll our Bermuda, our warm season turf will go dormant, and we'll do a lot of people will go in and put in a ryegrass overseed. And so in monitoring the not only the transition from warm season to cool season, once the ryegrass gets established, we'll take random samples and see where the root depth of the ryegrass is throughout its growing process. And as the root depth of the ryegrass goes down, we'll make the adjustment in our turf areas to allow for the deeper watering, so that way the ryegrass is watered to its most beneficial. Some people will put it a little too deep. Some people will just keep it at 2 inches. You know, we try to monitor it as best as possible to the zone that it's at. So having the ability to be on the app and just say, okay, I'm at a, you know, my ryegrass is at a 2, now it's a 3. Now I can stretch it out. Now I can water it a little bit deeper, water it more beneficial for that turf area. And it's the same as it doesn't just go, you know, for turf. It's also for establishment planting of annuals or perennials. We have some areas that, you know, they'll start at a little 3-inch pot, and then the roots get down to like 6 to 8 inches.
So do you use
with
the
shrub
user
materials
mode to start them? So when you're just you use user to germinate, right?
Yeah, I'll use user ET to germinate, because
Okay.
you know, where we are, you know, especially where, you know, in our coastal communities, we won't need as something. We'll say, okay, I want to give it, you know, 2 waterings at 15 minutes a day, with a 4-hour spread in between. Okay, great. And then, you know, if it's hotter or cooler, especially this time of the year, it's more important. So it's like, okay, well, you know, I'll put in my base ET. So where I'm at right now, near San Clemente, base ET would be about 0.8 inches a week. I'll put in that number. And then when we get our hot spells, hey, it warms up. If we get that coastal, you know, overcast and it stays cool all day, you know, water a little less and we won't flood everything out. Then after about 30 to 45 days, you know, as we keep an eye on it, then that's when we'll transition to an auto mode, and we'll take a look at the root depth, and we'll say, okay, our pots were, you know, maybe they're 1 gallon plants. So our real root depth was maybe 6 inches, and we'll start from there, and we'll transition them into an auto mode. And then as we watch the establishment of the plants, then we start stretching that root zone deeper and deeper and deeper.
So when you transfer back to auto mode, you come back into root depth and take it to a shallow root depth to reflect the youth of the plant, right? That's
absolutely
amazing. So that to me is advanced stuff, because what I hear most of the time is set it and forget it, right? Once it's right, you never have to touch these settings. And to maximize your water savings, that's not necessarily true. Like it is a great way of doing stuff by all means, but once you are down the rabbit hole of water nerddom like we are, this is a great way of not only ensuring plant health, but making sure that the water delivery matches the need of the plant.
Exactly.
Another example that you gave during our conversation pre-show of things that you watched throughout the season is this microclimate. Can you talk a little bit about how you manage that throughout the season?
Yeah, so, you know, especially with our turf grass areas in here, we water turf and have trees in our turf areas. So even though the tree might be part of that microclimate that's sunny all year, our turf grass isn't. So during the seasons, you know, during the springtime, we're warming up, but maybe our deciduous trees still don't have a full canopy. So we're going to say that they're sunny all year, or sunny all the time. And then as the season progresses, June, July, August, our canopy is full. We don't want to water that turf area as much, because it's not going to dry out as fast as it was when those canopies were emptied without any leaves. So then we're going to take a good look at them and maybe put it into sunny most or even shady most of the day, depending on where those zones are and how the position of the sun and yada, yada, yada is. but we'll take a look at it, and that comes back to our weekly drive-throughs and looking at everything, and we say, okay, we're starting to see this area, hold more moisture and less evaporation, so that's where we adjust that microclimate throughout the year. And then come fall, when it starts dropping the leaves, depending on the trees, like one of the most popular trees where I live are jacaranda trees. Beautiful trees, messy as all can be. And, about November, October, November, with the Santa Ana winds, they start losing their canopy. So when they start losing their canopy, we're going to go from shady most to sunny most. And then by January, we're going to have them sunny all day. So the temperatures might be cooler, but we're still getting a lot more solar radiation from no longer having that canopy. And so we're going to keep watering that turf grass year round because we have cool season turf and it doesn't go dormant in those areas, especially on our parkways and items like that.
Yeah, so if you've got that set to sunny all day because you programmed it in spring with no trees, the microclimate has changed because of the natural cycle of the landscape. And that is not something that all programmers keep an eye on by any means. One thing that I do see that I think advanced users should be doing, or at least something that I see guys succeeding with, is as they progress, as they get to where they feel like these stations are dialed in, they actually use the percent adjust. And once they feel like everything is where it needs to be, they turn everything down by 5%, and they across the board drive a 5% savings to see what survives. Do you do anything like that? Any
I'll look at certain sites, and if it's starting to look a little too wet, I'll definitely back it off. There's some areas where it all depends on coverage, and they get obviously in July, June, they'll ramp it all the way up to 25% up and say, I want as much as possible. Okay, yeah, great, but let's see what we can do. And once it starts really growing and the guys are mowing hay out there, we start adjusting it back, 10%, 5%. Some areas will actually go into the negatives. We'll go into negative 10%, because throughout the course of the season, what weather-based irrigation controllers are best at doing is pointing out the holes of an irrigation system. And so as come May, June, when we start getting these brown spots, we're like, hey, we need to either add a sprinkler head over here, change a nozzle over here, maybe some clogging. Something has changed throughout the course of the system. It's 15 years old. Once they make those improvements, now we can back down those percentages, and now we're getting more uniform coverage, and we're allowing the controller to make better managed decisions, and we're managing the percentages less, and we're allowing the weather to manage it more. But yeah, absolutely, those percentages get played with constantly.
And what I love about what you just said was, when I was a tech, the answer to this spot is dry was not let's do an investigation and figure out the distribution uniformity. It was always let's just add a few more minutes or a few more days and
exactly,
and make this problem go away. So I love that.
Exactly.
I love that you are not only reading the landscape, but reading the irrigation system and working on that distribution uniformity, working on all those water nerds things. So awesome.
Oh yeah, especially when they put in mixed rotors and you have full circles and half circles and quarter circles all mixed together, and you really try to work with the irrigation contractor, the landscape contractor, and like, look, this isn't ideal, but let's make it work. And you work out a solution so that it's cost effective, so the community doesn't have to pay for it, but you get a lot more uniform turf grass in an area, and you're not getting the 8 inches of grass a week in the corner and the brown spot in the middle.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew, we are coming up on time. I appreciate your participation this week. And as a second-time special guest, you have to answer the question for me. What is your favorite WeatherTrack feature?
My favorite WeatherTrack feature is actually not a programming feature. It is a research feature, and that is going into the reports and what I call programming forensics. What I love to do is when I first go to a site and understand the problems that they've had programming wise in the past, if they're older controllers, is digging into the programming and seeing how far back I can go. How, if the site's been there since 2014, I can pull up on a spreadsheet, on an Excel sheet, and download the programming history of that controller and understand why they've been having the problems they've been having. You know, maybe a certain station's been having the depletion go from, the managed depletion go from 50 to 70%, or the precip rates on drip is set at 9, and you can see the progression of everything going on. And you could, you know, I can sort it, I can find out all the alarm history. So having, you know, my favorite item is doing the programming forensics and then being able to pull up all the reports that WeatherTrack controllers provide us. It's invaluable because it allows you to research what's going on and give the community answers to the problems that they've been having, and it allows you to work on solutions for the contractor. It's because not all the time is it programming. Sometimes there's just a basic knowledge, the basic knowledge of the system they're working with. They don't understand what's really out there, and that's valuable because you can use that as an education tool.
Right. And one of the often overlooked features of WeatherTrack is the data, right? We work for Hydropoint Data Systems. They knew going in the value of all of the tracking of all of this information. So it's great to hear that you are putting it to good use.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's valuable. I can find out who did what when, and on the exact second with that timestamp. You know, whether it's done at the controller or on someone's account.
Absolutely.
And I definitely let my account managers know that too. It's like, hey, if you make a settings change, I'm going to know about it, and I'm going to know who did it. So just letting you know.
Who did it. Your fingerprints are all over this thing.
Exactly.
Okay, before we wrap up, Scott had a question. He said that his current version of the app is 3.3.1, which, by the way, is the current version. He asked, how do I get the latest and greatest, or make sure that I do? Currently, Scott, you do. 3.5 isn't due out until next week. And if your phone is set to automatically update your apps, then that update will happen automatically. You'll just log in one day and have all the extra new features. I'm making a video about how to use all the new fun stuff. So I can't wait to have you see that. If you realize it's after this week and you didn't get the update, go and uninstall your WeatherTrack mobile and re-download it from either the Google Play or App Store. You'll get the most current version in that case. So, and then you'll just log in. You won't miss a beat. It's a free download, and you'll log in with your credentials. It'll be like it automatically updated for you. All right. So, I might have had one other question, Scott. Andrew, do you prefer to use the irrigate to MAD or the normal irrigation when you were talking? I believe he's talking about the target MAD or the.
For general communities, I will do normal irrigation. I know that this is a topic that you yourself, Ben, have talked about many a times. Unless we can really super dial in a system and know what's going on and keep everybody's hands off of it, irrigating to MAD is really hard to do. So in general terms, I'll just leave it in normal. I still put in our we still put in our MAD limit, but that way we can have our irrigation run accordingly. But that irrigate to MAD is just, it's a beast to manage when you're trying to do a couple hundred controllers a day and keep everything green and thriving.
And Scott, based on that question, next month, in the month of August, I will do an episode on the MAD limit switch, and we'll talk about exactly how that behaves and what it does and what it means, so you can make a more informed decision on which one you prefer. So I will take that on, and you will see that in next week's slate of Smart Water Wednesdays. In the meantime, thank you all for logging in this week. Andrew, I always appreciate your perspective. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you. It was great for you guys to have this webinar series. I always look forward to watching them when I can, and this is thank you for having me on. It's been great.
It's always a pleasure. Have a good week, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Bye.